Tell us off.
They can try.
Okay everybody, this is Greg from the TPPA Action Group, who so very kindly helped me along with the Socialist Equality Party to get you guys together and get the word out. So thank you so much for coming. And now at the US Embassy at 1 o'clock, is it? At 1 o'clock? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit after that.
Yeah.
It's all good.
And this is American citizens might be able to actually get access to the embassy because they're not answering our questions. Maybe you could ask for us.
Shall we do that first?
If you want to.
Yeah.
They won't even tell us whether you actually start.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you want to try.
Yes, no?
Try. No. Yeah, true. Okay, Greg, you're on.
Hey, this guy was down at the Australian embassy too, He gets around.
Hey, Julian! Illegally detained under UN human rights!
ABC.
Go, Greg.
Julian Assange and WikiLeaks came very strongly into my notice with the collateral damage video where WikiLeaks, or rather Bradley Manning, now known as Chelsea Manning, leaked to WikiLeaks the video of the helicopter gun attack on journalists, and that was devastating because it's very hard to find out exactly what the military is now doing in their post 9/11 wars. Back in the Vietnam days, the wars were being publicised, although obviously the mainstream media were spinning them in their particular propagandised way. But now it's very difficult to find out what's going on in the actual wars. So with that video coming out, we could see that the military were very gung-ho and they don't care who they're killing. And through the TPP thing, I came to understand a lot more strongly the connections between trade, foreign policy and war making, all part of the capitalist neoliberal regime that we're all living under. And with the TPP, back in November 2014, I decided to put a submission into the parliamentary process in respect to the fighting or countering terrorist fighters legislation bill. And when I was presenting to the Parliament in November of 2014, MP Phil Goff, used to be Foreign Minister and also Defence Minister under the Clark government, he told me that back in 2003 that the GCSB and particularly the GCSB, but the New Zealand intelligence services explained that there was no justification for the Iraq war, right? And that's why New Zealand took the earlier decision that they did not to fight in the Iraq war in 2003. However, as we heard from Tom and back at the Australian Embassy, where he detailed the full story, the US put pressure on the Helen Clark government, and as a result of that, they found a way to place New Zealand forces into Iraq in order to keep the scandalous and corrupt oil for food program going, and to allow New Zealand's dairy farmers to access it through Fonterra. And that caused the New Zealand government, or that was part of the reason or the background to the New Zealand government making the decision to go and join the Iraq war in 2003 in June. So in March 2003 they said no. By June 2003 they were in there and participating. And it was Phil Goff, right, that said the GCSB told the New Zealand government that there was no justification for it. Now I've since done Official Information Act requests of the GCSB and the NZSIS asking for the information that Phil Goff gave me. I want the paper from Cabinet, like what was the advice that those intelligence services gave the government? Because if the New Zealand government or if the New Zealand intelligence services, right, are saying that the Iraq war is unjustified, then the New Zealand government knew it was unjustified at the time. Why didn't they put their hands up at the UN and say, Colin Powell, you're a fucking liar, right? When he did his talk at the UN to persuade the UN that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Did you get your OIA papers reply?
Yeah, I've got replies which they're saying they're not going to give me the information,
They're not
right?
going to give it to you.
No, and the reason is the New Zealand Official Information Act, it says, right, that all government information in principle should be available to the public, but there are specific withholding provisions in 6A or Section 6 of the Official Information Act of 1982. And these need to be changed so that there is a public interest assessment or test on any withheld information. Because otherwise, if we don't get that public interest test into the Official Information Act, we are only relying on whistleblowers,
Yeah.
right? The public cannot access official information about what the war pigs are up to,
Yeah.
okay?
So what do we have to do?
We have to open up the Official Information Act, right? And get the withholding provisions in Section 6 particularly. There has to be a public interest test, right? That's important.
How do you get any politician to be interested in that?
Well, there's ways of doing things, and but they are currently having a look at the Official Information Act. But I sent them an Official Information Act application about their review of the Official Information Act, and guess what? They're not doing a formal review. But so this whole question of what's done in our name and what we're not informed about is critical. WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, Edward Snowden, and countless others, including whistleblowers here in New Zealand, have all attempted to inform us about what's going on. We need to protect them because they are the eyes and ears of the democracy.
Yeah.
No democracy can make the right decision unless it's got full information,
Yeah.
right? And if we don't have correct information, then really we're not in a position to make informed decisions, right? And them arseholes in there, right, and at the Australian High Commission and around the corner at 44 Hill Street, right, at the British High Commission, their Foreign Office, they're all lying to us. Blatant lies about what they're doing for the war pigs. And the war pigs, right, are pretty much like it's the Council on Foreign Relations, it's Chatham House, in Britain, it's that Pilgrim Society that stretches across the Atlantic, and it's all their mates, Zionists in the neocons, etc., the ones that pulled on the 9/11 stunt to get the world into the wars. All of this needs to come out so that the world is aware of what's being done, despite the fact that we're saying not in our name. Free Julian Assange, free all the whistleblowers, protect the people that are looking after the public interest.
Free Julian
Thanks,
Assange!
Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Woo.